Delighted to be joined now by financial advisor and markets commentator at Aquis Exchange, David Buick. A very good morning to you, David.
Empress, top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning to you. Let's talk about these bills going up. I mean, across the board, gas, lecky, water, council tax, car tax, TV licence, your broadband and mobile phone costs. Some people are going to be getting an increase on the minimum wage, some people on the living wage. That will be good. But in a week's time, our employers are going to be hit by the national insurance employer rate going up, and that's going to dampen down future hirings and future wage rises. We're all going to be worse off, pretty much. Whose fault is it? Who's to blame?
Well, I think we're going back really to the budgets in October of last year when this ludicrous £22 billion black hole was discussed. Much of it was the creation of the Chancellor herself by offering, I think it was a 9.8% increase to a lot of public sector workers who probably deserved it. But I just didn't like the way it was done.
I'm just never quite sure how much we need to pay train drivers to come to work, personally.
Well, I think they're out of it at 60 grand or 70,000 pounds a year. But I think the problem we've got is that we are back into an inflationary bubble. There's no question of any doubt. You reeled off. My water rates, for instance, went up from £417 to 620 quid, which is something like a 35%, increase. Now, we know Thames Water is in worse condition than anybody else, so I rather expected that. But for a lot of people, that is breathtaking. And then, as you say, you've got rates coming in, you've got the cost of driving licenses and everything that people need. And that is inflation. We saw inflation come down from 3% to 2.8%. Don't hold your breath, because I think it's going to be somewhere near 3.3 to 3.5 come the middle of July, because these things take, Julia, some time to sort of filter through.
And the key thing, of course, is when they talk about, we've had politicians in the last year saying, inflation's coming down. No, it's not. Inflation is still going up. It's just going up at a lower rate than it had been. We had it at over 11%. But it's never we never had deflation. The prices went up, and now they're going up at a lower rate, but they're still way higher than they were, 2019.
Well, I think that's right. I think the biggest one of the lot that we've all seen, I think over the last 15 months, I think I'm saying that food inflation is at 35% since, 18 months ago.
Yeah, and again, the bills that have most gone up, food, energy, and things like that, are the bills that people don't have a choice about. They have to eat, they have to keep warm and have lights on. How much more are we going to be hit if and when, as we expect, these Trump tariffs to hit tomorrow? We don't even know, and it appears an awful lot of staff in the White House don't know what the tariffs will be. Donald Trump was on radio and television yesterday talking about how we're going to hit people with the same level of tariffs they're hitting us with, but it's going to be soft, it's not going to be as much. And I'm thinking, well, either it's the same or it's not as much. It can't be both. But looks like we're not going to be exempt from those.
We used to have, before you were even a twinkle in your father's eye, a television program called Maverick.
I remember.
Now, that's exactly what Donald Trump is. He's a maverick. And nobody actually, Julia, should be remotely surprised that we are at 6s and 7s, and we don't know whether it's Tuesday or Thursday, when it comes to these tariffs. But there is a $1.2 trillion deficit. And nobody can accuse Donald Trump of lying. He told the rest of the world, I cannot accept this. And so some sort of tariff war was always on the cards. I think the way it's been handled has been utterly ridiculous. It's 25% now on steel and aluminium. Oh, no, it isn't. It's 20 now. And all right, we'll have a month's wait before we bring Mexico and Canada into it. And now we've got the question of the United Kingdom tomorrow, which will be part of Liberation Day.
Liberation Day, that's it, yes.
Yeah, Liberation Day is upon us. Now, we have no budget deficit or surplus for the United States. So there's no reason on God's earth why they should vent their spleen on us. But they are also very likely to do so, particularly in the auto industry, where, we have got a pretty substantial amount of business that we've done there over a period.
I think it's 17% of our car exports go to the United States, and again, the top-end cars, high-skilled jobs and the like. But what's interesting is often when Donald Trump talks about this, I don't know why he's just into tariffs, the greatest word in the English language. It's just madness. He doesn't seem to understand that it is a tax effectively on the consumers in America. And I understand about, bringing back industry and manufacturing to America. I get that. But he also seems to confuse VAT with a tariff. He insists that we do have this 20% tariff. No, it's VAT. It's a sales tax, which they also have in America. And yet he says we've got VAT on American goods, even though it's on every item that will be sold. I mean, other than food and children's clothing and like. So there's an element where we're kind of dealing with someone who doesn't even understand his own policy.
Well, he's had his bloodhounds out there, and I think they've been very, very cleverly selected. People who've taken over prisoners, people like Howard Lutnick, who've been in the business world for a very long time. But at the end of the day, with Steve Pezant, who's a very sensible person, who's a very, respected fund manager, and he will come back and he will put his hand on the president's shoulder and say, look, now, he may not want to listen to Donald Trump, but the fact remains that when Goldman Sachs and people like that say there's a 35% of chance of a recession in the United States, forget what's happening in the rest of the world, then that's the time when you have to actually start listening. This is about the most inflationary piece of legislation you could possibly put on anybody.
Yeah,
and when you start bringing in the drug industry, when you start bringing in the cars which we know are going to come and the rest of it, it is absolutely penal. And you cannot blame other countries for saying we're going to take retribution out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not acting yet, but we'll see what comes. Really briefly, we're very short on time. Are you worried, though, that this could escalate into a bigger trade war and, again, worldwide recession, but also risk of war, because trade wars often end in war?
Well, I'm slightly concerned about the headline I read today about Taiwan and China. Yeah. Now, before, they have always, jingoistically messed around, making us very uncomfortable. But this is a chance where they've been given an opening, whereby it might just prove to be something more. And I hope, again, Donald Trump has a look at this, also realizes that Vladimir Putin is not the man that he's flagged him up to be.
Yeah.
And maybe, never say never, but maybe these tariff implementations won't be as draconian as we hoped, because I think at the end of the day, he may have very strong, profound views, and he may not say, I don't care whether people buy this car or that car. At the end of the day, what Donald Trump loves above everything else is being rich. And he wants all his people in the United States of America to have a better standard of living. And that, I think, is stuck like, a comic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between, what's going to happen in the midterm elections or not, if people need to feel better off or not. David Buick, always so good to talk to you, commentator at Aquis Exchange. Thank you for that.